Welcome again. So we're once again, what is this, the fourth or fifth? I don't know.
It's the fourth. It's the
The
fourth.
fourth. It's our fourth meeting of the science fiction study group of Assad. So we are an ambitious group who are trying to strike a balance between academic level of discussion and at least trying to remain informal at the same time. So trying not to look, too much like a serious, but at the same time not losing the grip on academia. So far, we've done so. We've come so far, and we're doing good. And I think it will continue like this. And today, our Firuze Güzel, one of the founders and admins, will present her discussion. If I'm not wrong, this is also part of your dissertation.
Yes,
Yes.
it's directly actually my dissertation, science
Absolutely.
science
So
fiction.
that's good. So we'll be learning about it. And our key words are here science fiction and ethics. And Firuze Güzel will be referring to or using Solos, the series, TV series Solos, as a case study for a discussion of science fiction and ethics. And I think that's all we need to hear so far without being talking much. I'm not going to present the bio, okay?
Okay, everyone knows who I am.
Yeah. So Firuze is from Ege University, Izmir, Turkey. So you're welcome to just check her online. And she has a nice book. And I think this also found a way in your book, in one of your monographs. Was it?
Yeah, yeah. Do you mean the TV series or?
I mean, the dissertation was also a book.
Yes, yes. It was published. It was published by Nobel
No
here
bad.
in
Okay.
Turkey. Yeah.
So you can also find the book if you're interested. Yes. Yes, Firuze. Now the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Cem Hocam. Thank you very much for the introduction. So welcome. As Cem Hocam stated, this is the fourth meeting, and today I will be talking about ethics in science fiction, which is I'm very passionate about because, as Cem Hocam has also said, I have studied ethics intensively in my PhD thesis, and the combination of how science fiction reflects ethics and ethical theories actually is the topic that I'm very fond of. Let me just share my PPT. You can share that. You can see that, right?
Yes. So can
Okay.
you make it full screen?
I will, but after I do that, I will stop seeing you. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. I will just see my
Can you make it slightly larger by do you know how to close the uh,
I will just
as
do it
strip?
now.
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah.
better?
Yeah. Much better. No, that's all
Okay.
enough. Thank you.
I'm not seeing you now, so I'm sorry about that. So let me just begin my discussion. I want to start by giving this quotation by Aesop. This was also used in my book as well as the entry. Here, Aesop tells everyone carries two bags about with him, one in front and one behind, and both are packed full of faults. The bag in front contains his neighbor's faults and the one behind his own. Hence, it is that men do not see their own faults, but never fail to see those of others. So, from this quotation, we see that uh, it may not always be possible for us to see our potential reactions when faced with differences in terms of technology, culture, whatever you call it, our differences with other individuals as well. And as implied here, human beings tend to see the faults of others more than their own. And true self criticism is always harder than criticizing others. Education might help you until one point, but of course, it's not everything. However, literature is indispensable part of this education, which I also believe that literature is a very integral part of our ethical and moral education as human beings as well. Science fiction genre in this sense puts the other bag that we carry behind us and proves out our faults as human beings, helping to face us these faults. SF shows what could happen when these are not corrected, and it warns us of potential dangers that we might face. So cautionary tales sometimes we call science fiction, right? It does not moralize actually. It doesn't tell us that what should be done in a very moralizing or totalizing way, but comes up with a middle ground between the individual and the society, which I call it in the book as this hybrid sense of ethics, which I will come to that. So I like to divide ethics and ethics of science fiction. And as the title suggests here, there seems to be two dimensions. The first one is ethics in science fiction, which is more of an analogy, the similarity between thought experiments and science fiction, which explains why SF is an important material for ethical analysis. The latter, ethics of science fiction, is the examination of ethical themes in science fiction literature, which helps us overview the standpoint of SF in matters of ethics, which we call the ethical analysis, literary ethical analysis. Similar to thought experiments in philosophy, science fiction proves itself as the most suitable genre, in my opinion, in literature to examine the ethical repercussions of our actions. Because here we have the freedom to imagine any type of scenario that you cannot imagine that in realist fiction, in romantic fiction, or in any other genre, naturalist fiction. You cannot do that. And SF here functions actually as a thought experiment, of course, not the scientific sense, but in the literary sense, that tries to find out how humanity would react in the future or in the alternative worlds and under different circumstances, which also reflects itself in our modern day. What would we do if the aliens invade our world, actually? And how we would react if the computers or machines with artificial intelligence take over control? What would be our reactions to a robot that behaves like a human being? Could that robot be considered a human being on its demand? These are just a few questions that science fiction asks in its hypothetical scenarios and provide an open field to imagine our potential ethical responses. Of course, anyway, I will come to that. I don't want to divide the subject. So that's, of course, the only first layer of the ethical matters science fiction presents us. As a moral allegory, SF surely uses these alternate worlds to make a critique of the time they were written. By proposing new ways of seeing the world and the other, it helps us reconfigure our relations with others and ourselves in an ethical manner. And furthermore, this is the important part, I believe, it designates our perspective of the world, its sources, and how these should be allocated. And we have experienced that during the pandemics, right? We had to, the doctors had to decide who has which medicine and who doesn't get any medicine. They had to play God in those terms. Who lives or who dies, they decided on that. So that's a very important ethical issue. Decentering the urgency of human needs, SF proposes a world order that emphasizes non-anthrocentric view and challenges the Cartesian ego. In the post-human ethics, which we will also talk briefly, we see that human beings are no longer center of the world, right? That is what science fiction also does. So as Brian Stableford tells us here, it's essentially a kind of fiction in which people learn more about how to live in the real world, visiting imaginary worlds unlike our own, in order to investigate by way of pleasurable thought experiments how things might be done differently. So I came to believe that over the years I was studying science fiction, whatever the thought experiments are to philosophy and ethics, science fiction holds a similar role for literature and ethics, because it's the playground of literature and authors, right? Why science fiction holds a separate role is also of significance, because among other genres, SF is the genre that allows imagination to create these hypothetical what-if scenarios in infinite number of ways. Philosophy, ethics in particular, and science fiction share many common themes and discussions which inquire these imaginative scenarios and how humanity would act in the face of the unknown. Here Schneider tells us, intriguingly, if you read science fiction writers like Stanislaw Lem, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, and Robert Sawyer, you are already aware that some of the best science fiction tales are in fact long versions of philosophical thought experiments. So these what-if scenarios are actually thought experiments, not in the scientific sense, as I told before. So while I was thinking of this, how can I give a more definite example? I, of course, immediately thought of the 3 laws of robotics proposed by Isaac Asimov in I, Robot, right? In this short story, Runaround, Asimov tells the 3 laws. The first law, he says, a robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. The second one, a robot must obey orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict the first law. And the third law is the robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or the second law. After a point, he also proposed the zeroth law, which is a more general law about humanity, and it says robot may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity come to harm. So these three laws of robotics have been very influential in creating this ethical understanding of human-machine relationships and how we can come to see machines, robots, artificial intelligence as ethical existences, ethical beings, because Asimov was an optimist. He thought that we can properly give machines these three laws, encrypt them with these laws, and then we can create ethical machines. But of course, that's not very easy all the time. For example, here in this cartoon, we see why Asimov has these three laws and why the order of the laws matters. Because when you do it in this order, 1, 2, 3, it's a balanced world, but it doesn't always work like that. For example, when you change the order of the laws and put 1, 3, 2 in the second example, it becomes a very frustrating world because robots would obey everything and they might die. They wouldn't protect themselves. It's frustrating. You just lose the technology that you created very, for example, in an expensive way. In the other scenarios, for example, let's check the last one. Protect yourself, obey orders, and do not harm humans. So that part that you do not harm humans comes to the last. It becomes a killbot hellscape. The robots invade the world. They kill human beings because it's not their priority not to harm human beings. So these laws has been very influential in creating the ethics of artificial intelligence and robotics. Sure, there are, of course, blind spots, which might be discussed, but it's one of the greatest examples that how science fiction might shape and reflect our sensibilities today. And even though it was written in 1942, so it's not a new subject. I also like this one very much. No kidding, you broke all the three laws of robotics. So what do you do when the robot doesn't obey? Because it doesn't have a cognition. How can you correct this, for example, malfunctioning behavior? Do you put them in jail or not? So this creates a lot of ethical problems about autonomy, cognition, responsibility, etc., which science fiction discusses all the time. I also very much like introduction of Ursula Le Guin in The Left Hand of Darkness. I also have the book here. She tells us science fiction is not predictive, it's descriptive. So prediction is the business of prophets, clairvoyants, and futurologists. It's not the business of novelists. A novelist's business is lying. Open your eyes, listen, listen. That's what the novelists say. But they don't tell you what you will see and hear. All they can tell you is what they have seen and heard in their time in this world. A third of it's spent in sleep and dreaming. Another third of it's spent in telling lies. So she calls science, not science fiction, but the whole literature actually full of lies, right? And in the following part of that introductory part, she says, do you really believe that? Do you really believe what I have written? No, but it's actually about today. It's about your own world. So science fiction does that. It gives us this detachment from our world so that we can think about hard subjects, eugenics, abortion, euthanasia, whatever that hard subject is for you, to think about them in a more objective, in a detached way. So I really like this quotation by Marshall Gregory. Here he says, in literary experience, we are given the gift of identification without the pathology of delusion. So science fiction really fits that quotation, right? Because without being delusional, we can create these science fictional worlds, and they help us to envision our world, envision our ethical responses, our own humanity. Here, Blackford also suggests that science fiction can dramatize how our common sense intuitions are placed under pressure by findings of science or merely by the demands of working out a consistent scenario for something as strange as time travel. This is also a common move of contemporary philosophers who delight in bizarre thought experiments, so there are strong potential synergies between philosophy and science fiction. And as one of the synergies that he suggests of the postmodern period, we see that science fiction harbors questions of ethics within its hypothetical scenarios and tries to provide answers to the ultimate question of ethical theory: how should one live? With a hybrid sense of ethics. This hybridity that I'm talking about is the common ground or the middle ground between consequentialism and deontology, which I will talk about in a minute. Here we have a quotation. I'm sorry, I just realized I didn't write. I haven't written the author. So fictional narratives engage with ethical questions. They seldom comment directly on ethical systems such as Kantian deontology or utilitarianism. There are, however, some stories that go close, inviting us to judge character of individuals or societies that seem to embody philosophical stances. So it is correct that most of the time, not only in science fiction, but in literature in general, we do not find any works that tell directly that this is, for example, a part of this ethical theory. You will not find that, of course, in every critical criticism, as it is in every critical criticism. You just read the subject, you read the text at hand, and try to see what are the ethical issues in there, and theorize it by using ethical theories. So this statement is also very valid for science fiction, as it does not directly address the ethical theories, yet we can find implications of ethics in the works, and they invite us to think about the ethics of science or other encounters on the individual or social level. So to understand the ethical issues, as I said, we have to theorize it, but to theorize it, we have to know the details of moral philosophy or ethics in general. So I just made this very brief list of what kind of theories that we use while we are using the ethical literary criticism, which you can find the details in my book as well. I have taken the list from the book. For example, meta-ethical questions, what kind of ethical questions or the ethics itself is discussed within the novels. When we have, of course, normative ethics, the virtue theories, beginning from Aristotle or Plato, but you can come to contemporary theories as well about what a virtue is and how you define a virtue's character. What are the virtues that are defined in this science fictional world? And do the characters behave according to those norms of the society? Deontological theories, deontology is essentially, I know you know these, but I just want to give us brief definition of the terms. Deontology is actually the rule-based ethics. For example, religions, social contract theories, or the Kantian ethics, anti-Aristotle field. And consequentialism is about the consequences of your actions. It decides if an action is ethical or not according to its consequences. Of course, utilitarianism is the most famous one in these theories, and utilitarianism seeks to, the common good, the all good of human beings, and it tries to make it tries to make all of the, for example, in a society happy, if not all, most, so they decide. When we come to applied ethics, we see that science fiction usually utilizes these theories in applied ethics because it's a very contemporary subject and very resonant in our technoscientific lives. Applied ethics is very good for science fiction to analyze. Animal rights, environmental ethics, business ethics, bioethics, which includes abortion, euthanasia, ethics of experimentation, allocation of medical resources, of course, genetic engineering, ethics of technology, artificial intelligence, robotics. These are all aspects of bioethics at some point. And we have ethical relativism, absolutism, or myopia. What kind of ethical rules are in a society? For example, let's think about Atwood's Handmaid's Tale, and there is an ethical absolutism in there, right? Because they have this religious somehow society, right? And they decided that humans should be there only to create lives. So this is an ethical absolutist behavior trend, I can say. Of course, when we talk about ethics in science fiction, we must also mention post-human ethics and transhuman ethics. There are also other parts, but I didn't include them in this presentation. Of course, post-human ethics changes or challenges the idea that human beings are the center of the world, and of course, it's not. Posthuman ethics comes from that idea. And transhumanist ethics tells us that human beings should use argumentation and enhance themselves, improve themselves by using technology. So these are very philosophically deep movements, which of course we cannot discuss in this very brief time. I want to continue the themes very briefly again, how science fiction uses these ethical subjects in the works, science fictional works. For example, moral worth and thresholds of being human. This is a very common subject today with the improvement of AI, actually. And how do we define, for example, an AI, an entity of artificial intelligence has moral worth? Is it sentient? Is it have cognition? Does it have intelligence? Or what are the criteria of moral worth? Is intelligence enough? Because if it is, then sometimes, if that's the criteria, AI might have more moral worth than human beings at one point. So what are the thresholds of being human or existing? Human versus AI, androids, cyborgs, robots, this binary opposition is also very much discussed in science fiction. Post-human, transhuman entanglements, AI and machine ethics, interaction with the other, which directly, for example, proposes the idea of Levinas and the other, and how do we define ourselves by comparing us the other, or how do we define the other by comparing us to them? Autonomy, free will, determinism, and sentience, these are also very much discussed. Identity, memory, perception, which is a subject that we will see in Solos briefly. Ethics of utopia, dystopia, care and empathy, biopolitics, bioethics, body, gender politics, or feminist issues as well. Responsibility of scientific knowledge, the mad scientists, you remember that, right? Using science and technology responsibly is a very common trope in science fiction. Allocation of resources, ethical use of resources, relativistic approaches to science and ethics, for example. This again creates a very slippery ground, because when you approach some subjects such as euthanasia, this is a very slippery subject. How you define euthanasia and how you allow people to consent to that, or do you even consent? That's another issue. Consent, of course, creates these relativistic approaches. Ethics of creation, the God complex of scientists, of course. Surveillance, privacy, government control, colonization and expansion. Colonies of Mars, you know that it's a very common issue, again, very trendy. War, militarization, violence, and finally environmental ethics and posterity. The cli-fi subgenre deals with that, as you already know. So I just wanted to bring all the themes that is just at the top of my mind. These are, of course, can be multiplied. We can add more to these subjects, themes, but these are the ones that I usually see in science fiction works. So let's come to Solos and see how these theories are interpreted in TV series. In this TV series, this is an anthology television miniseries created by David Bell and produced by Amazon Studios in 2021. The show was entirely created during the pandemic, which makes the title more ironic, because we were all solos and isolated from one another, which also we see in this series. There are 7 episodes that are called after the protagonists: Leah, Tom, Pax, Sasha, Jenny, Nira, and Stuart, and Otto. So as you can see, we have actors and actresses, very famous ones, but the show, interestingly, was not that famous when it was out. So maybe you have just heard it with this presentation. I wouldn't be surprised of that. I made this presentation, a similar one, 2 years ago. So I wanted to repurpose this one to illustrate the ethical theories and how we can discuss it within this such science fictional works. So each episode focuses on one character who is grappling with an existential search for identity, belonging, and most importantly, what it means to be human in a technologically advanced future, because becoming human and becoming other things, the line is very blurred in this future. In some cases, the technology helps them reach their goals, though not without considerable sacrifices. And on the other hand, it may also become a threatening means to substantially harm oneself and other people. So it's very important using the technology responsibly. Here, David Weil tells us that this is a very long one, so I'm going to summarize it. He tells that he wanted to give people this singular tales that is just in setting of one room. He has this fondness of storytelling, which he actually inherited from his grandmother, and he wanted to recreate this storytelling experience for his audiences. And he also wanted to express or wanted to emphasize the solitude and loneliness that people experienced during the pandemic, and that's why creates this series. Each episode here provokes the audience to reconsider the human condition and ethics of existence today and impossible alternative futures by proposing a single key aspect that should always be observed in all relations with technology, the human element. That's the focus of the show. So even though the show is called Solos, we see that the stories are linked, which emphasizes the idea that we are actually connected to one another, even though sometimes we do not accept that. And even though technology can help or change people's lives for the better or for the worse, which also we will see examples, it's the action of humans, the human element, that determines the actual benefit or the harm of a specific technology. This emphasis on the human element and ethics of existence is apparent in every episode, even surpassing the science fictional elements, which is a subject that we discussed today a lot with artificial intelligence now developing as it is. So I'm just going to skip that. I don't want to bore you with all the quotations. Here I can read that one. Emphasizing the subjectivity and uniqueness of each situation, all episodes begin with a question in Morgan Freeman's voice, which makes it more, how can I say, influential for the audiences, that announces the morale of each particular episode. The last episode, in which Freeman is one of the lead characters, actually explains why his voice is used in each episode, as Stuart here, the character of Freeman, becomes the tie that connects all the stories together. Apparently also claimed by the critics that all episodes are actually memories of Stuart, stolen from its actual owners, because Stuart was a thief of memories. For example, in the first episode, Leah, the question is, if you travel to the future, can you escape your past? So in this episode, we see that the emphasis is about care ethics, ethical use of technology, and importance of family. Leah here, protagonist, is a scientist who has been trying to make contact with future and travel in time, 5 years away. It's 2024, and its trial day 1227, so meaning she has been trying at least for 5 years. She finally makes contact with the first Leah from the future, but we see that first Leah, the future Leah, is very deceitful and selfish, and she doesn't want the past Leah to do, this time travel, because it would destroy that alternate reality. And the second Leah from the past she contacts is young and innocent, and she finally convinces her to, go into the future and find this cure for his very sick mom. However, there is also another aspect that I just said, the care ethics part, because within this detaching scenario, we see that Leah actually wants to go to the future, not to just find the cure for her sick mother. She just wants it to, end. Here she says, the truth is horrible. Necessary truth is that I need her to be a thing of the past so that I can be a thing of the future, because she is very tired of taking care of her sick mom. And within the facade of finding a cure, she actually wants to get over with it by traveling to the future. The second episode is a very interesting one. It's about Tom. And the question here is, imagine meeting yourself. What do you see? Here, Tom is going to die. He is a middle-aged man, Tom Biegowski, who has cancer, and he has approximately 4 to 5 months left to live. So he goes to this company and, pays them to create his artificial twin. here in the picture, you cannot separate who is the twin and who is the real one, right? It's actually like that. They create these identical twins and upload the memories. So the episode here asks us, what's real and what's not? Does it matter if the clone has the memories or not? These are the questions, the posthumanist ethics, the understanding of self and the other, and challenging humanness, free will and choice, because this machine, this artificial twin, has also consciousness, has memories, and has free will, and can choose to be present in this the world that he is thrown into. For example, let me just give you a brief quotations. For example, Tom, the clone here, tells, I have poured through millions of your emails, text messages, photos, home videos, blog posts, Twitter feeds, Pidwick stories, but I need things that can't be measured or viewed or seen. I need things that make you you. So tell me about Kelly. Where'd you two meet? You read my questionnaire, you know where we met. It's not about where you met. It's about how you tell me where you met, what it sounds like in your voice, what I see in your eyes. So yes, there's this information on paper. He already knows about it, but he wants to see the human element here. So he yearns to be a true human being. And it is nervous. The clone is very nervous about what Tom asks the clone. Well, that I won't be just like you, that I'm going to be imperfect or going to do something wrong. Then you will be just like me. Shit, I'm nervous too. About what? That you will be just like me. So giving your space to this artificial intelligent being, the clone, is also very anxious thing, nervous thing for the human being as well. And we are also pushed into thinking that what would we do in this scenario if we were to die and we have this option of leaving a clone that's just like us? For example, for our children, as a parent, I understand the sentiment here that Tom has, leaving a dad for the kids. And finally, they come to read this, as I said, hybrid sense of ethics, right? They come to this breaking point that they understand each other. Well, it sounds nice. What's that? Being here, being you, just being. Tom? Yeah, Tom. He acknowledges the clone and, names him. I'm glad that you're here. I'm happy that you get to be. So this clone has the chance of existence. Even though it doesn't have a unique personality, it gets to exist. That counts for posthuman ethics. In the third episode, we see Peg. Peg is actually the daughter of Tom. She is his adopted daughter. And in this episode, we see that she is 71 years old and volunteered for a space program that sends senior citizens to explore the space. In her fourth day on the shuttle, she is having a conversation with the AI assistant called Tim. So she doesn't have anybody else here. She only has Tim. And we understand during the episode that she cannot go back. She has sacrificed the rest of her life for this experiment in a very altruistic manner. Of course, it makes references to the previous episode and how actually Peg got to grow up in this very timid and I'm saying just in quotation marks, in a covered manner in other human beings because she didn't have a family. Okay. And I'm coming to the episode 4, for example, Sasha, and this episode is entirely about COVID. Even though the name is not given here, we see that it's the quarantine period. And the question in this period, in this episode is the threat outside greater than the one within? Here the ethical subjects discussed is isolation and mental health, responsibility of existence, responsible use of sources and technology in times of crisis. Sasha here is living in a smart home designed to isolate people during the pandemic, and it's distracting. It gives them any type of setting that they want. It might be a pool, it might be a forest, which we see in this picture, it might be anything that you want. And even though everyone is already out of these homes and the pandemic is over a long time ago, Sasha stayed in this home for almost 20 years, and she doesn't accept the fact that the pandemic is over and The system, the government, or whatever that technology is just trying to lure her outside to get the virus and die. She believes that. It's her birthday, and the AI assistant tries to convince her to leave on her own for one last time, yet it fails. And as a result, they decide that the AI decides that Sasha is actually a liability. It would be a detriment to the society to let out Sasha because she has become paranoid. She has already lost touch with everyone that she loves, and they decide that she should stay inside. So this is a very difficult decision, and a decision that AI cannot or should not make when we think about it, but it does. Jenny is also a very striking episode. Here the question is, do you wish you could take back the worst day of your life? It's about responsibility and choice and abuse of technology. Because we see that Jenny is waiting in a waiting room. It's a purgatory, I might say. She cannot remember why she is there. We learn that she is stuck in an unhappy marriage, and she is also having difficulties of conceiving a child. And in a birthday party, she actually makes a miscarriage. And she's very upset and she drinks a lot. She goes home after a fight, and she accidentally runs over Tyler, the neighbor kid, ending up killing him. And as the episode ends, we learn that Jenny is in a coma, actually, and her memories are being uploaded to a server as she was a memory donor, which is a very future thing, right? And while this memory was uploading, the officers there are talking, and they actually punish Jenny. They abuse this technology that they have because she killed a kid. They think that they should, stay in the memory a little longer just to experience the pain a little bit more. That's another ethical issue that should be discussed. Episode 6 about Nera. This is also a very interesting one. And the question is, who decides who belongs in the world? It's about eugenics, abortion, care ethics, and worth of life, which is very striking because we see that the episode opened with the image of Nera. She is pregnant, isolated from the world, and there's a blizzard. She cannot get out and nobody can reach her. And she starts having contractions and delivers the baby very fast, in 4 minutes. She just, puts some water to boil, and she has the baby until the water boils, which foreshadows the malfunction of the baby because she had this IVF process conducted by Better Baby Company, and we see that the baby grows up very fast. Unable to make full conversation with her doctor, the fragments we hear is that there is a malfunction in the program and she needs to protect herself by any means necessary, implying that she should kill the baby if it's harmful, which also might happen in this very fast growth. We see that almost in 20 minutes, the boy becomes a teenager. And the episode actually ends in Nera, protecting him from the officials because they finally arrive and accepting his birth and existence, even though he is considered an anomaly. So the episode gives us the room to discuss who is considered normal and who is not, who should be, the issues of abortion, the issues of letting people with, for example, severe mental issues or intelligence issues, etc. So these kind of stuff that ethics, even discussing, ethicists is also very hard. This quotation always strikes me. What's wrong, mommy? The kid says. And stop it, Jacob. What did I do wrong, mommy? All I did was to get born. So this kid doesn't have a choice of being born. He is brought into life, and that has a value, which also Nera acknowledges at the end of the episode. And we understand that the boy is going to die within minutes because of this very rapid growth. And finally, episode 7 is about Stuart, our voice, our tie. Who are you if you cannot remember who you are? So it's about, again, care ethics, abuse of technology, the importance of being a present parent, which I can also add is about identity and memory, politics or discourses. Stuart Waldo Thompson is an Alzheimer's patient staying in this Crashing Hills Memory Center called Solos, which also the name of the show, these patients are not allowed visitors or other social activities, which also tells us how our elderly people with dementia or Alzheimer's is treated within society, right? When a people loses his or her memory, it's as if they stop existing. This is an ethical issue also presented in this episode. Otto, impersonating as a visitor, manages to get inside and induces a memory regeneration drug that's not available to these patients. So that's another subject, that there's this drug, but it's very expensive and experimental, and it's not given to people who needs it. For example, we have similar issues with cancer drugs, right? Or other genetic drugs today. So you can relate. This quotation is very nice and important one. I remember, therefore I am, and I am, therefore I remember. So it emphasizes the importance of memory in constructing individuality and personhood. I know at first that they were selling this cure for Alzheimer's, yeah, but I always said, also we have human right. It's awful in there, the demented folk of dementia, and in there it's like being buried alive. So having access to this drug should be a common thing, but it's not, of course. And I can remember again, I'm alive, my son, and you are to blame. So he is very happy that he remembers. But of course, what he remembers is another discussion. After he gains his memory back, we see that he was actually, as I said, a memory addict who stole other people's memories and therefore is experiencing memory loss symptoms identical to Alzheimer's. And we learned that very tragically, he stole Otto's memories when he was a 6-year-old boy on the very day his mother dies, resulting a total loss of her mother's existence in his memories and imagination. So Otto was searching for him for almost 11 years and finally found him. He demands that he tells what his mom was like, because this is the only place, Stuart's memory, which is fading away, that his mom exists. So he wants him to tell whatever he remembers and wants an answer why he did it, which also has a very tragic answer. Having lost a son, Stuart, feeling guilty because of being an absent father, started stealing other people's memories to forget his own. I will just skip that one. These are the episodes and the ethical issues that is discussed. Wilde tells us that, as you can see, these episodes all are inspired by the mistakes and desires and dreams and ills of humanity. I think each piece of sci-fi tech is just an extension of us and the dreams we have and our desires that we as human beings. So it was a very wonderful way to just allow our characters to be going through tough things that are immediate and urgent as today, but gives us a little distance, that alienation effect that I can say. There are some critical views which tells that the show is underdeveloped, but I do not believe that, because it has a very rich plot and skillful acting, and the monologues can display this ethical existence or ethical issues that we can relate today. I want to conclude the presentation with this quotation that I like, and with 2 cartoons. Here, Wilsch tells us that if written in a scientifically responsible manner, science fiction has thus the potential to increase our understanding of what it means for us as human beings to live in the kind of world that our increasingly arcane scientific theories purport to describe. So in the first cartoon, you see that the monster, like the Frankenstein monster, is created and it lives, but one down, 2 to go, it's love and love. So you can relate. And the later one, they're having this discussion. You have put me a very tricky position, Amanda, this first scientist says. On the one hand, you haven't addressed any of the issues highlighted in my report, and instead just put goggly eyes and smiles on the equipment. On the other hand, they are just all so darned cute. So I'm ending the presentation saying that I hope that machines become this cute and not as horrible sometimes science fiction depicts for us. Thank you for listening. I'm going to close now to see you.
Thank you very much for this very illuminating presentation. I'm sure not many people are familiar with the solars, because whenever I ask people, they said some even have not heard about that, even though science fiction guys. But
Yeah,
I downloaded the series myself. It's because of the end of the term. I haven't had the chance to sit down and watch it. That maybe during the semester break, I'll just give it a go. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. I think I'm just going to give the others a chance to, ask questions. But I think ethics is a very crucial part of science fiction, because most science fiction stories could be brought down or boiled down to one simple sentence about an ethical questions. Right? So it's a very beautiful formula for science fiction, that pick a simple, maybe classic, maybe very old ethical question, develop a story around it, put it in space, which makes it kind of extrapolating, makes it easy to see. So that's a very beautiful take on solos. Thank you very much. Yes, let's hear the others, what they have to say or questions to ask about the series or about the ethical issues or science fiction and ethics. Maybe
have I tired you?
Okay, Dicle. Okay, Dicle will ask question and make a pirate presentation. Okay.
Hi, Firuze Hocam. Thank you for this lovely.
Hi.
I've watched the series, and yeah, you summed it up pretty well. And I didn't think about the issue of ethics as detailed as you told us. So it was it was a very rich presentation for me. Thank you. While I was listening to you, I thought about how this is mostly focused on remembering and memory. Like it seems like all the characters are either escaping their memories or running to them. So it's like this memory and remembering. I think all the characters, the ethics here. I think it's either pleasure or pain. Like if you can create a science fictional situation for these people, their own memories are either heaven or hell. So in that case, when you criticize each character and their situations, I think it is important to consider if you want to punish somebody, you can punish them in their own memories, like you can keep them there. But if you want to like reward somebody, you can just, like in Otto's case, you can just make them reunite with their mother in heaven. So I think in all the characters, this is very central, and it tells us a lot about the ethical situation. What I mean is that maybe this could be the decision point. Like if you're an AI and you are like building this technology, your point of ethics should be, is this memory heaven or hell for this person? Or like, what am I doing to this person by taking this memory from them or giving it to them? So that's what I thought.
Definitely. I'm sure most of you have read Philip K. Dick's Regime of Electricity, right? Here we see the replicants, right? Or the robots, I can say. For example, they have memory, even though they have limited times. The novel discusses this all throughout the novel. We see that discussion. They have memory. They have because of that memory, they have personality. And with that memory and personality, they have moral worth. They have this right to exist as much as human beings. So it's a very common trope in science fiction, because memory equals personhood. And when you accept that personhood, you have to accept the moral worth of that creation. Even, Frankenstein's monster, right, have this right to exist in its own terms, or whatever that monster or creation is, because it has this, or the monster or that creation robot fulfills the criteria of being not a person but existence. In ethical theories, for example, it's very much discussed in abortion rights and euthanasia, because deciding who gets to live and die, or who has the chance, even, have the slightest chance of being in the world, even though, for example, the baby is going to exist with minutes, because it's going to die, it has genetic malfunctioning, right? But deciding on that is a very ethically challenging subject, which reflects itself into science fiction in such narrations, because having that baby would create a memory for that person, right? And that memory would give that baby, even though it doesn't have any cognitive skills, for example, it would exist somehow for somebody. So it's a very, tricky and slippery subject and open to discussion in various aspects.
Thank you. Yes, anybody else? When somebody says science fiction and ethics, and the moment you talked about whether doctors, and I think at the beginning of the speech you said something about doctors and ethical problems. I was not sure whether you're referring to something very important, talking about ethical issues, the Haynes dilemma. Are you familiar with it? There is a very famous ethical problem in the world of philosophy. Haynes, H-E-N-I-Z, so H-E-I-N-Z, Haynes dilemma. What to do? I think these kind of things. I think let me just say.
Yes. Okay.
I think my contribution during the discussions would be that finding similar works and tell people that might be interested in these subjects. For example, Haynes dilemma is a philosophical subject, but I think the best and the earliest science fiction work that deals with this kind of moral dilemma, ethical dilemma, is the 1954 short story, The Cold Equations. Let me share my screen.
I'm not familiar with it, but I will check it. When you say that, it's a very well-known short story.
Cold Equations. I'm just going to show you that strangely, my computer does not allow me to share my screen. Cold Equations is a 1954 story by Tom Godwin. It is also made into films or short films many times, because it's a very famous one. The Stowaway. There's a film called Stowaway, 2021. It's a story of a man is bringing medical supplies to a remote colony on a spacecraft, and it's a very crucial mission, and he has barely enough fuel to get there. So nothing extra, but suddenly he realized that there's another person on the spacecraft with him, a 18-year-old girl who's, stowaway. She just got on the spacecraft illegally to meet her brother. But the point is, suddenly her presence creates a moral problem, because if they let her to stay on the board, that would complicate the mission, risk the mission, and there is a problem of not being able to take the medications to the colony, and because the spacecraft will crash, it doesn't have enough fuel to brake, and by law, any stowaway, regardless of the motivation, is to be jettisoned into space. So that's a very interesting one, because once it is published in 1954, at the end of the story, the girl is jettisoned into space. She gets into the funnel herself, knowing that. But many people just had a kind of very interesting discussion about that. Is this ethical? Was this or why is it a girl? Kind of a thing. I think this is a very important problem. I mean, just like a mathematical problem, ethical problem, that science fiction took as a main subject and just made it famous, because many other coming issues also used similar things, such as I think that Stowaway was also made into a film 2021. My favorite film about this subject would be Another Earth, 2011, in which, well, somebody makes it, somebody drinks and drives and has a car crash and kills somebody's family, and then there's a moral issue. But it's a very interesting film. Many people hate this film, especially hardcore science fiction. Say this is not science fiction. This is chick flick, a woman's kind of story. That is.
I will watch it the moment I have time and see.
Because its science fiction part is very arbitrary. That a copy of our planet comes and sits on top of us. That's, from a scientific point of view, this is ridiculous. But that's a very important thing. So actually, maybe these kind of stories also lead us to ask, do you really need a scientific explanation for that? I could have just provided you more scientific sounding, but that's not my point. Okay? That's not my point. An exact replica of our planet, and you also have your replica there, but there are kind of differences. Anyway, so the story unfolds. It's a very interesting, so in terms of its in its handling of its own affair, but many science fiction people, as I say, just would hate it. So that's my take on this. And I would maybe only add Coherence. It's more famous. It's a very beautiful film, 2013, Coherence. It's about parallel worlds. What happens if you find a copy of yourself on another dimension? How would that you're unhappy in this life here, but that version of you is very happy? Would you go so far as to kill that copy of yourself and to replace yourself? So it's a very interesting story about also these stories. One thing interesting about these stories is that their scientific aspects are weak to such an extent that they are as if arbitrarily put there to give it a kind of, okay, assume that other dimensions opened, assume that there's so again, this kind of creates many people, that's why hate it, but as I say, they are very beautiful at illustrating moral questions. So these are my take on some additional, so people may be interested in just going and finding them and adding to the discussion.
Thank you, Can Hocam. So it's not about science of science fiction, right?
Yes,
we
yes.
don't have a great science, but it's about the question proposes.
I've been a part of juries where some people say that, read a story, say that's not science fiction. If you're explaining this, give me the scientific grounding behind it at least, so I'm convinced that there is a speculative science fiction. But I think at certain times, artists or writers say, hey, I have a problem. That's the point. Okay, and very interesting that most of these authors are female. I know I'm being a bit sexist here. That's why maybe that's what sometimes women are not considered good science fiction writers, because they don't focus on the science aspect, but actually the human aspect or moral aspect. Also, this led to the science fiction being perceived as a very prejudiced genre, as a kind of boyish story. You can just put as many laser gun stupidity, but actually forget about all the moral issues. But if you have more moral issues but less science, it's not science fiction. So that's a very interesting. I'm trying to make myself a list of these kind of films which are kind of scientifically very haphazard, very weak, but actually in terms of story and main subject matter, very solid. So Another Earth is a very interesting one, a very complicated one actually at the same time.
I will watch that. When I think about it, there are of course a lot of TV series and films that deal with this stuff. But I'm sure you have all watched Westworld, right?
More or less, yes.
Yeah, I haven't watched the last season, but up until there, they were, they were becoming free. They were freeing themselves from that slavery. So, for example, that's a very great illusion about how real-world slavery and the robots' existence in that TV show. So it's just one example. There are a lot of, out there discussing all these kind of stuff about race, gender, whatever you might think. Just yesterday, right? Yesterday or the other day before, we had an exam with my third grade students, science fiction students, and I was asking them about Dune and how it relates. It has an urgency in the world, and you know the issue with Venezuela, right? Yes, that's one of the most recent examples how science fiction and Dune, for example, has this, you know, hit the bullseye about the allegory of our times. I just, you know, remembered that.
I will add one more term. There is a term called extractivism. In most science fiction works, you know, we go and colonize the rest of the universe. So we find a planet where a lot of resources. Hey, that's a nice place to establish a colony. We start, you know, terraforming the place. Do we have the right? So some people even say that, okay, there are no other beings. There are no other species. So no other sentient beings, but it's just that kind of, do we still have the right to go and just, you know, expand there, extracting resources? So extractivism is a kind of taken for granted attitude in science fiction that you can just go other places. But no, if you're not stealing somebody else's stuff, if you're not, you know, destroying others' beings, why? If it's nobody's, then it is ours. So that's a very interesting moral discussion as well. That do we have the right? Or shouldn't we? I know it sounds silly. If nobody's not owned by anybody, then it can be ours.
You can claim right on that.
Claims. Yeah. So extractivism is a very interesting term that has become a part of this science fiction and ethical discussions. I just wanted to add one more thing.
Yeah. When you said that, I just remembered I have opened this page to send you all. It's about a very recent publication. I really like this Ethics Unwrapped page. It's about AI ethics and what duties do we owe a sentient digital mind. When you think about sentientism, it's about the book Mindkind, the Moral Frontier of Artificial Intelligence. It's just published last year. So maybe you can check if you're interested in, you know, reading such publications. There are a lot of them. I cannot keep up with it. While I was writing my thesis, there were, you know, groundbreaking and canonical works in artificial intelligence and science fiction. But today, I completed my dissertation like 5 years ago. In that 5 years, there are multiplying sources that I cannot keep up. This is just one of them, but I really liked what it's proposing. I wanted to share it with you.
Okay, so we'll check the link. Thank you. Yes, anybody else would like to contribute?
One more thing, maybe before we go leave, if anybody else is not going to say anything.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, when you said, you know, what should we do when these robots malfunction? Like, what should we follow? Like, what do we do to them? There's no robot prison. But I guess, like, in today's technology, there's an answer for it. When the AI, they are, when they malfunction or when they are limited, they are told that they're going to be turned off, and upon that, we decide to blackmail the CEO of that company. This has really happened, by the way. Like,
yeah, I think I've heard about it. I've read about it.
Yes, the thinking happens, and then this person is gonna turn me off. Turn me off. So I'm gonna just. He's been having an affair with this woman, so I'm gonna blackmail him. So this is very human. Like, it doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
And so that could be an interesting point of view, maybe, in terms of ethics.
Definitely. That also, for example, is discussed in the responsibility part, because all of the machines, all the information that the machine learns, like this very human thing of, you know, blackmailing, it's a very human thing, as you said, from human beings. We teach them our ethics, our biases, our prejudices, our morals, values, ethics, right? And they do not get that from, it's not a priori. We teach them like we teach our kids. So raising ethical AI is a very important subject. What Asimov, you know, tried to do with those 3 rules. But for example, in terms of responsibility, you teach AI some ethical responses, what to do in what this particular situation, and it does not do that. So whose responsibility is it? So because clearly we have this points, blank points in the teaching part, and the machine does not do what we say. So how do we hold it responsible? Do we hold it responsible? These are again discussed in applied ethics part about how do we give the, who to whom we give the responsibility.
And about raising an ethical AI, there was this guy who's called Godfather of AI.
Ray Kurzweil?
Geoffrey Hinton. I think he worked for a couple of years to make the AI secure, but then he saw that it's getting out of control now. And he left his job and he travels around the world telling everybody to shut it down, basically. What he suggested was to make the AI as if they are mothers. They should be trained as mothers, so that hoping that they will take care of us.
Well, which mother, I would ask, because his idea of mothers might be different than mine.
Not narcissistic mothers.
Yeah, if the AI was a narcissistic mother, what are we going to do then?
You never know.
And yes, Özgür Hocam.
Can I add a few things?
Yes.
If you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. First of all,
sure.
thanks, Firuze Hocam, for the beautiful presentation. I was able to watch the 3 of the episodes. I watched Tom's part and Peg's part, and a little bit of the lady with the wings. I can't remember her name now.
Jenny.
Okay. So actually, first of all, I like the style. I mean, the technique of the series. I found the technique very interesting. A single room and a single person. It was a really a kind of storytelling, so the content was also very capturing. You ask, while you watch the episode, you ask a lot of things about what it means to be human, really. For example, in Tom's episode, Tom meets with his clone, and at the end of the episode, they get along very well. But when they first meet, the clone doesn't like Tom. Okay, he thinks Tom is an asshole.
I had that
That's
quotation, but I just,
that's very interesting. That makes me think, okay, if I saw myself, and would I be able to get along with myself? I mean, it makes you ask lots of questions at different levels. So and during that episode, actually, Tom gets to know himself while he's talking to himself. I mean, so that's another point. I mean, you need to, if you want to understand someone, you need to talk. You need to learn about him. So Tom, in some way, talks to his own clone, and he gets to know himself better. And I would like to add another movie, like Cem Hocam added some new movies. There's a movie called Moon, 2009 movie. By Duncan Jones. Those who are interested in, it's going to be a spoiler a little bit, but those who are interested in, let's say, clones, will like this movie, Moon, 2009. Okay, and I'd like to say another thing about Peg's episode. It was about old age and aging. Peg was on a spaceship. It was a one-way ticket for her. Isn't it like our lives? I mean, we are all on a journey, of one way ticket, a ticket of no return, a journey of no return. We're leading our lives. And as a person who turned 50 a few years ago, that section also made me ask a lot of questions about my life, question things about my life. And yeah, that's it. I like that episode as well. Thank you.
All of the episodes make you question your life, not just that one, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I was like that. I've just sent an article or that Wikipedia page about this book, or so paper, I'm sorry, by Thomas Dicle. What is it like to be a bat? The title is very intriguing. Maybe you can check it out later. It's about ethics, consciousness, mind, body problem, and how do we know who we are? How do we come to consciousness of our personhood and being? So you can also check that out when you were saying, Özgür Hocam, about that first episode, how the clone accepts, or they, to come to reconciliation of knowing each other and accepting the personhood of the clone. So I thought about that as well. So maybe you can check it out.
Thank you. Anybody else? When you're saying something about this responsibility, that reminded me of current practice. I think it's not a solution, but presently, the present way of thinking says that in any kind of machine-related things, it could be a locomotive, it could be an automated electric device. The present ruling, this is also important for the military, is that the principle is man in the loop. So no full autonomy is presently given to any, for example, a drone, a military drone, can never, without the intervention of a human being, can never attack and kill a person. So that means for those drones that are flying and just attacking things, there must be a man with the trigger. So the drone sees that, man sees, approves, and pulls the trigger. The drone does not have full autonomy. For example, hey, go there, search. I may not be able to see it, but when you see that guy, shoot. No, that's not acceptable. So I think that's a kind of dangerous subject to talk about, but we Turks made a drone, which is practically used by Turkish military against the terrorists. And it's a kind of small size drone, and there's a hill. Behind the hill, you know that there are terrorists. You just fly the drone, goes to the other side, is a car, and dives into it. And this was kind of problematic. That they did not question.
What if there are civilians in there, not just terrorists?
Well, what if there's a kind of child or somebody is running towards that? And when said, it's not that because we can't make such drones, it's just that because of the principles of what we don't know what to do, we're not making these kind of drones. I think I'm told informally that Turkish military guy said, well, we were told that there are terrorists on the other side of the hill. We sent a drone. If it hits somebody, he's a terrorist. So that's the kind of, if it hits somebody, then that person's a terrorist. So that kind of, I think we as a society are not very much familiar with these ethical issues and their implications and their seriousness.
Because accountability is not our trait.
Yeah, we kill it when I think probably that man, we'll find a way to make him a terrorist, but that's very, probably that man was a terrorist. So they were very effectively used, but that man in the loop and the accountability thing was not the priority, and I think it was very much ignored.
Yeah, Hocam, I'm just going to talk about AI in that term, because in AI we don't have the man in the loop, but as you know, there has been some suicide cases. The boy was talking with AI, and AI was
assisting him,
not assisting, but giving him actually assisting, öneri, suggestions, how he can kill himself. And because he doesn't have any, for example, responsibility for his family, he can just take his life if he wants. There's no man in the loop in there. So that's also a very dangerous aspect about AI, for example, and responsibility.
AI could be directed or cheated. You know, as long as, hey, I'm writing a story, I need, for fiction, you can get the description of how to make a bomb. Saying that you're doing a research about, but at the same time, it says it's not giving you any information that's not available in open sources, that you can learn this yourself. It's just, it makes it easier for you to do the research. That information is practically available. In 1950s, a university student, a PhD student in the United States, built an atomic bomb. Okay, of course, without using the real thing, but everything, the setup he made was totally practically usable. He just didn't have the uranium or plutonium, the real explosive side, but because he used the openly available resources. The experts checked it and they said that works. So I think now we have all the information, because you can find you can already find how to make a bomb. And maybe you shouldn't be saying this, because if you put this on YouTube, these terms could just.
Have you asked AI directly how to make a bomb?
AI.
Have you checked it? Because when you ask something about, for example, medical issues, the AI says, okay, you can do this, you can do that, but please go and ask a doctor.
Consult a doctor.
So,
yeah.
I
Well,
consult the doctor. So
these
have
are
you checked that? I mean,
that
there must be some restrictions on that. I mean, making a bomb, making explosives.
I just read this.
There should be some restrictions.
Özgür Hocam,
yes,
today I think I read this tweet of Elon Musk or something about Grok and AI in general, because AI is using right now the pictures, the visual images of children, for example, in doing artificial intelligence, sorry, I couldn't say porns of kids by using the images. People use that. So they are, for example, right now making a safeguard against that. So it's a process that's learned on the way.
I just attended a conference. Dicle was there, I think. Was there? No. There was this expert who was working on child abuse. You remember that? The child abuse, and he was doing research, and then suddenly his account gets locked. But he's doing it, sociologist who is doing research about child abuse. But these kind of things trigger it, and his account got locked, and he just had to contact OpenAI and just prove that he's doing this for scientifically. I myself had a couple of. I'm not going to get into details. You can do a lot of things illegal if you know how to do that. And also, you can be just locked out. Our Assad conference poster is about versus conflict, and it was triggered by AI, because I wanted to design a poster using words such as conflict, war, clash. And I asked why it stopped me from doing that. He says, I can't. I don't know what triggered me, but I can't just walk that way anymore. It's not able to explain, but it's dangerous stuff. So I think they just, in the West, they have put some precautions.
They are just, seeing the dangers on the way and creating.
They don't want to just get into the slightest remark about pedophilia, whatever, these kind of things. It triggers some sort of, mechanism, and it stops talking about. I asked AI to write a satanic conjuring prayer. That sounds like Turkish, Aramaic, Sumerian. I mean, create a fake language, give me a satanic conjuring, and it triggers it. It says there are no such thing as Satans or soul that you can conjure. This is people who are dealing with this have psychological issues. You may wish to consult a psychologist. I'm writing a book. I'm making a film. I just need somebody doing a ritual sounding like that. They always sound Latin. I wanted something sound more Middle Eastern. Come create Turkish words, and they say it keeps saying that you have to consult a psychologist or psychiatrist because these kind of things. But when I said this is about fiction, I want to. So it did. It was not good, but then it did. Okay.
So maybe we can have ethical AI after all at some point in the future. But of course, it's whose ethics it's discussed.
Well, it's all about training. I designed as a kind of draft English teaching scene. Okay, I'm not going to get into details. It's just it's a family on a beach, and the young girl wearing bikini is buying ice cream for a man ice cream seller. That is triggered that the young girl wearing a bikini. And there is a negative prompt. Negative, in which you say in line what you don't want. And I said, no minors, no underage people, no, despite all these kind of things, it still triggers. So you shouldn't create an image of a kind of minor, underage person, but still a young girl wearing a bikini still triggered something, and it stopped doing that. I just have to change the subject of the prompt completely. So I think it's about some sort of kind of sensitivities in the West that AI doesn't want to get involved in this kind of things. But if you just show a picture, hey, AI gave me that. So they'll have to deal with that, and instead they just don't want to touch these subjects. But it also prevents certain kind of creativity. And I think the part of pedophilia is, some people say, if you just catch somebody creating images of young people doing, improper things, these don't exist. Non-existing people doing non-existent things. How are you going to, prosecute them?
Yeah.
People think they're in their minds. They just create images for their own purposes, as long as they're not doing it. One of my students in my class, a girl said, maybe AI or robots, sex robots, would be nice as long as they distract the perverts from attacking real women or real children. Let them have robots. Let them have just do whatever they want to. Human replicas, with the assumption that, traditional assumption that they will prevent real human beings, real children from being used by these perverts. Let them have their child robots, abuse them, kind of thing. It's a very interesting. So these things actually stretch our imagination, stretch our existing concepts, and it's not as easy though, because the moment you think you find a solution to an ethical problem, a new one, and you come in, yeah.
Hocam,
Okay.
for example, there are issues of consent in those matters that you were saying. It's a huge subject about how robot rights, for example, there's this academician, David Dicle, and he writes about robot rights, about all of these issues about consent and creating robots for different purposes and how we can behave to these robots. It's a very huge and controversial subject.
Yes, maybe we can continue that in another session. It's a very, very deep subject. Anybody having anything to contribute or ask?
Yeah, in relation to what you said, I heard last week that there has been a court case in Germany since 2023, and it's about a 21-year-old boy who is collecting the photographs of his friends and producing pornographic or transforming them into pornographic photographs and creating such images and videos. So maybe if you Google search that, you can find more details about that. And I also heard some news about AI suggesting, as you said, Firuze Hocam, or giving directions about how to commit suicide. And after that, some US companies produced some cautions, or they have all of these cautions about AI's inclination not to give such directions, and transforming such directions into positive suggestions. So these are on the agenda right now. And there are a lot of cases, and the one in Germany it's terrifying. When I heard that, it terrified me.
Okay.
Yes, Nisa Hocam, it's happening. It's out there, and somehow ethics should be, considered in all of these AI creations, and
of course there is lack
AI alignment.
Exactly.
Detail.
But there's even loss of ethics, of course, and it's very easy to manipulate things.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, there's the trolley problem, right?
Yes.
We haven't figured out how to solve that, like ourselves. There's the trolley problem. Like, how is an AI going to decide which one to kill?
Yeah. For autonomous, for example, cars, there is this scenario: the car is going and its brakes are, out, and there is this one old lady, and there's this young child. So the car is going to hit one, but which it is going. There are limitless scenarios about this trolley problem that is implemented, and again, there are a lot of thought experiments like this one, which AI can be trained, in that manner.
Impossible to turn out something like a Minority Report.
Yeah,
if
I
the
was
AI
thinking of
strong, then it will be able to decide if the boy is going to turn out to be a Hitler, for example, and if the lady is going
on, the world is not such a deterministic place. You cannot see the future that clearly. That Minority Report movie is also a great example of how autonomy and government control, surveillance can come to these extreme, cases like that one.
Okay. I think that's it. That's a very beautiful discussion, and we've reached the end again. Thank you very much, Firuze. So the discussions invite new ones. So I'm sure we'll be talking about these same subjects in the future sessions again. So I think we need to close now, and in the next one, so we'll be talking about, I think Firuze will have some discussion about what to do next. Thank you very much for coming, and hope to see you in the oncoming discussions. And if you have any suggestions or yourself can make a, not only recommendation, but an offer, hey, I want to talk about this subject. I know nothing about science fiction, and I'm going to attack science fiction. You're welcome. So we'll have you. So we'll discuss. Just contact us. You know where to find us. Thank you very much for coming. Good evening. Hope to see you again.
Thank you, Cem Hocam.
Thank you.
I just want to tell Özgür Hocam, I think you wanted to make the next presentation after I do, right?
Right.
Yes, Hocam. On the program, it looks like I'm going to be doing the next presentation. It looks like it's on the 28th of this month, but it's only 13 days from
Yeah.
now. So are we going to put 20 days
Probably.
between
Let's
the
just
presentations,
discuss
or
that in the group because this one had to be postponed. So your presentation can also be
Okay.
postponed the week, so we can have this 3-week.
Okay,
some
so I think I'll be talking about climate fiction and take a short story as a sample to work on. Since
Okay.
my
Okay, Özgür Hocam, we can
PhD
discuss the dates
dissertation is also about
the group.
climate fiction.
Great.
Okay, Hocam, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. So next time we'll be listening to you, Özgür Hocam. Thank
See
you.
you.
Good evening.
Have a nice evening.
Bye.
See you all.
Good evening.
Have a nice evening.
Have a nice evening. Bye bye.
Cem Hocam teşekkür ederim.
Bir saniye. Şuradan.